Hi, good afternoon. You are here with Citizens Advice Manchester and Ask Cam about the energy price cap. So we know that there's been a lot of coverage in the news in the last sort of week or two about the energy price cap and how people are going to be affected. So in order to kind of try and put your minds at rest, or at least kind of direct you to the support that can help you to feel a little bit more comfortable with that, I have enlisted our wonderful energy champion Jess to talk to us today. So hi Jess.
Hello.
And we will talk you through kind of the basics of almost like what the price cap even is, how you might be affected, and kind of some of the support that might be available. We, as always, have got the comments box open, and if you want to ask a question to Jess, then please do feel free to drop a question in the comments box, and we'll do our best to answer it. And also, if you're watching this on catch up, then again, feel free to drop a comment in the comments box and someone will come back to it at a point in the future. Just because you're not watching live doesn't mean that you can't ask your question. So Jess, let's start with the really basic stuff. What is the energy price cap and what's happening?
Thanks, Rosie. So the price cap is something that's put in place to help low-income and vulnerable households pay a fairer price. That fairer price traditionally was actually more expensive than the fixed tariffs out there, but now actually it's protecting quite a lot of people. There's around 22 million people now on the price cap, which is a lot of people, and in the last 6 months it's gone up by 7 million people. So it has gone up. So the price cap isn't a very good name for it, if I'm honest. It's not actually a cap on how much you pay. It's a cap per unit. So you use more electricity or gas, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less. It's the per unit part that you need to kind of think about as the cap. So what's basically happened and why we're in the energy crisis that we are in, unfortunately, it's been driven up by several factors, and then factors have meant a massive increase in the price of the sale cost, which has then been put onto the energy companies, which has then been passed over, obviously, and to us, unfortunately. And from the 1st of April, it's going up by 54%, which is just unthinkable. Hard.
It's huge, isn't it? Yeah.
It's massive to try and even take in and swallow and understand what that means in terms of how that's going to affect, and it will affect near enough every one of us, unfortunately. So that when we say the price cap, you're on that. You're sorry, let me explain. You're protected by the price cap if you're on the standard tariff, the variable tariff, the default tariff. Any of them things basically are protected by the price cap. So if you've not been on your if you've not switched for a long time, you're probably on the price cap. If you've come out of a contract, so you finish a fixed term contract and there wasn't anything to move to, which was relatively cheaper, you might have stayed as you are and then you've gone onto the price cap protected standard tariff. Or if you was with an energy company that went bust, you probably moved to a new supplier. If you've not kind of fixed into a tariff with them, you'll have gone onto the price cap pretty much.
Right, cool. So I guess, like you say, quite a lot of people will be on the price cap. And like you say, previously, often we used to do quite a lot of work with people about talking about what was the best tariff to be on. And for a long time, those fixed tariffs were the best option. But like right now, actually, you're probably better staying put on a standard tariff, or I guess if, like you say, if you're about to end your fixed term tariff, maybe take a look at it and think about actually, would you be better? Because you may be offered a new fixed term tariff and have a think about whether or not that's the best option for you.
So it hurts me and kills me really that for years and months and years we've been telling people that please do a check such and saves, please look into the money that can be saved, because there used to be that option, and unfortunately now there just isn't. What we are trying to tell people is if you're on a fixed term contract, definitely do stay on that. Whatever you do, don't think about leaving that, because you'll be definitely paying a lot less than what's currently available. And then if you're coming out of a fixed term contract and you're being offered them, it's about maybe looking at that unit price per it varied compared to like the standard tariff or what they're offering you, to see which is best. But if you are, it's a very confusing, and if I'm honest, sometimes I still get confused with it. So if you are worried, do get in contact with Citizens Advice. We've got energy trained staff that could do a comparison for you if you're unsure if actually it looks like it would make sense for you to switch, but you want a kind of a second opinion. Feel free to get in contact with us and we can check that out for you, because we want what's best for everybody. And if there is a saving to be made, grab it with both hands at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Yeah, please do give us a call or get in touch with us in any of our sort of online ways as well, if you are sort of a bit overwhelmed and confused by it all, because it is a bit baffling, isn't it, when you look at it on the surface. So yeah, we're very much here to help if people are struggling. Now, obviously, the price cap has been announced, and then there have been some government measures announced as well. So what support is out there at the moment that is going to be coming post April when the new price cap hits?
Yeah, so it's worth mentioning what roughly it's actually looking like it's going to go up to, but it's not. These figures are based on an estimate, what kind of Ofgem have said that a typical household may use, and it's worth noting that typical usage was before the pandemic, so people probably wasn't working as home as much or wasn't staying at home as much as what they are now, so typical usage is actually probably gone up. It's also worth noting that, as we've said, is you'll pay if you use more energy, you'll pay more, so that price cap isn't the figure, so it's not gone up by £693 and that's all they're allowed to charge you as a point. It's flexible, so if you're using more, it will go up more. If you're using less, it'll obviously go down less. That's why we try and use the percentage more than the actual figures of how much it's going up by. But for prepayment and for credit customers, it's going up by that 54%. There's a few decimal points out either side, but it's going up by that 54% really.
Yeah. So I guess like you say, when we talk about like figures, a better way to look at it is to almost look at what your own annual energy prices are at the moment, and like what you're paying per year, and essentially putting that up by 54% rather than looking at like any of the figures.
Yeah. So if your typical usage is £1,200, it's going up by half of that again. Sadly.
Great.
So in terms of the additional support, going back to what we were mentioning, the government has announced quite a lot of support, which is nice. That they've suggested they are putting in place some support available. In terms of household, there's a £200 discount. That is going on people's energy bills from October. Yep. That £200 is actually a payback £200. So they'll give it you in October, so that will help reduce your bill by that £200. And that is worth noting that it's potentially going to be going up again in October, and that's another story. That's a way down the line that we'll talk about that, but it's being added onto that bill to hopefully support in the fact that the prices will probably go up and your usage will probably go up. So that £200 is kind of going to help with that. It is a payback amount of £200, and it will, for the next 5 years, you'll have £40 off each April's bill. So you will have to pay that money back. And then they announced a secondary measure, which is £150 non-refundable, not refundable, repayable. Big difference. Yep. A non-payable council tax rebate of £150, and that will basically wipe £150 off your council tax bill in April. So hopefully that will help a lot of households, and it's aimed at around 80% of the households out there, banding A to D. You can find out what banding you're in on your council tax form, or on your council tax letters. I think actually they're probably coming out in the next few weeks to tell you what the next year's worth of payments should be. But also you can go on the local authority website, so Manchester City Council for us, and it'll tell you what banding you're in there as well, to see if you're eligible for it. So that's bands A to D that you'll receive that £150. And like I say, that should be a really big boost to come off. And then they've also kind of added a third support mechanism, £144 million worth of discretionary that the local authorities would be able to provide to people. So another £150 basically for people that don't meet the council tax banding. So for example, if you're a student, you don't pay council tax. If you've got somebody in your household that you don't pay council tax for because they might have a severe mental health impairment, they might also not be responsible for paying council tax, but they still obviously need the £150 off the bill. And they're also, the government's announced that they're increasing the amount of the Warm Homes discount, and two, the kind of breadth of how many people are able to apply for it, or receive it, I should say. So the Warm Homes discount, just for anybody that isn't aware, I do talk about it quite a lot, is a £140 off your energy bill. It is awarded to people on a low income, or if you're in receipt of a means tested benefits. There's kind of a few criterias additionally to that, but that's kind of the main criteria. And there's two groups of that. There's the core group, which is if you're in receipt of pension credit, the guaranteed part of pension credit, you automatically receive that. And that's not being touched. But if you're in the broader group, so that's where the criteria is slightly different, that's what they've opened up. And that is gone from 2.2 million people are allowed to receive the Warm Homes discount to 3 million. So a good increase. Yeah. And the money from this year, so like the winter period, it's going up from £140 to £150. So that is a positive again. I know, obviously, we probably think that that was based on the presumption of what support was needed probably last year, and actually now £700. It probably needs to be a little bit more, really, to support the most vulnerable.
Yeah, like you say, I think it is obviously it's a very positive move, and any support that's being put in place, we're never going to argue with. But I think as you say, there are so many people who are going to be quite significantly affected, and it just feels like it's just not going to kind of quite be enough for a lot of the people out there. And really, sort of from Citizens Advice's perspective, nationally, we do feel really like there probably needs to be more done to really help those who are most vulnerable, most in need of support, and particularly looking at sort of more support that gets delivered through the benefit system for those who are the most vulnerable in our society. But we're not here to talk about policy. We are here to talk about the practical and what people can do. So obviously we've covered sort of quite broadly there, like what's happening and like how people might be impacted. In terms of the sort of the support that's out there. Oh, and actually, I think I've just realised that I'm working my way down a checklist. Now, we know that what was happening quite a lot at the end of last year and may continue to happen as we kind of see the price cap and energy prices like soaring, is suppliers are going bust. Like we're getting suppliers shutting down and going bust. Now, very quickly, because we have touched on it in previous live streams, and I do encourage people to go back and find our energy live streams. You'll see them they're often given away by Jess's lovely face. But in terms of like what happens if your supplier goes bust, what should people be looking out for, and how should people sort of protect themselves if that happens?
No, that's a great question, and touch wood, it won't happen, but unfortunately I think energy prices increasing by 54% may mean that actually more energy companies may struggle. So in terms of what kind of the do's and don'ts of how I try and put it to make it as simple as possible, so that the overarching message is you won't be without a supply for gas and electricity. First of all, as soon as you hear about your energy company potentially going bust, don't think that that means that you'll just have no supply, because that's not the case. There's tried and tested safety nets put in place, and Ofgem will move you over to a new supplier. The do's is to take a meter read. That basically shows that your old energy company stopped kind of supplying you at this point, and then your new supplier has taken over and started you at that point. Do take either kind of get an account balance if you can. So if you've got online banking, try and take a screenshot of it. If you get bills, make sure that you're keeping copies of them. And that again just shows that your energy company, you were in X amount of credit, or you're in X amount of, you owe them X amount money. That means that obviously that information can be passed on to the new supplier. As I've said, the new the Ofgem, the regulator for gas and electricity, will move you over to a new supplier. That can take a few weeks, but you should be contacted by them to say, hi, we're your new supplier, we'll now be taking over. And then the kind of, to add on to that, the don'ts. So the don'ts are, if your energy company goes bust and you go, well, I don't want to move to that supplier, I don't really like them, we do say try and wait until that supplier is at least taken over fully before thinking about switching. So make sure that you're getting all your accounts set up properly first before you switch, because although it's a relatively smooth transition from old to new, if you throw a third person in there, it's just going to confuse things, so it's not worth it. And then the other don't is to try and, if not, cancel the direct debit if you pay via direct debit. Again, you're using that energy that you're paying for, basically. So we try and say for you to make sure that you're keeping up with them payments. The new energy company will get in contact with how they want you to then start making the new payments. And if for any chance that does happen, you're protected by the direct debit guarantee, so it won't. You would get that money back if there were a double payment made at all. But we do try and say to cover them costs so that you don't fall into arrears, you don't it doesn't mess up at all. So do try and keep up with them. And then once the energy company says, right, we've taken over your account now, here's how we want you to pay them, then you can cancel that one and continue paying the way that they would like you to. And it's also worth pointing out, if you are in a credit with the energy company and they do go bust, your credit is protected. You will get that money back. It might take a while, I'm not going to lie. It's not a quick process, but you will get that money back. Yeah. But unfortunately, you're probably going to pay more if you move into a new supply, because as I've said, you're probably going on that standard tariff if you're on a fixed tariff beforehand. So yeah, that's right. Currently kind of the do's and don'ts of if your energy company goes bust, but hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see less of that happening going forward. But it is always good to know, just in case, like we see those other ones going bust. And I think just to kind of throw in there as well, obviously what we saw last year, at the end of last year, which was a bit unprecedented, was Bulb going bust, and that at that point they didn't. Essentially, people didn't get automatically transferred over because they didn't get taken over by another company, and that at that point almost. The advice to those customers was don't do anything at all, because actually everything's going to stay exactly the same. All your payments will stay the same. It just, you won't be like, it's being managed in a slightly different way because they've gone into administration. So again, we may see some of that happening. And again, it's just that kind of sit, wait, don't do anything until you understand kind of what the situation is. And in those circumstances, if you're ever concerned and you don't know what is happening and who's taking over and what's going on, again, our energy teams they've always really got their finger on the pulse as to like what's going on, what's happening. So do give us a call and we'll be able to give you the best advice for your personal situation. So let's talk about support that's available then, because I think what I know is I feel like I watch the news, talks about the energy price cap, and it all feels very like bleak, essentially, that there's, you can't switch tariffs because everybody's paying at the same amount. You can't, make necessarily huge amounts of savings anymore on your energy bills. But let's talk about the positive things, because it feels like we need to bring some sort of light into the situation. So what can people do to protect themselves? Like what can people do to sort of essentially make the best of a bad situation, I guess is the question.
So I think the best thing to try and say is we need to maximise everybody's incomes as best as possible, so that they're not worrying as much to put the heating on, or make sure that they're cooking tea properly, not just having a sandwich because they don't have to use the cooker then. We want people to be able to still use the gas and electricity like they should be able to be. And to do that, we need to make sure that every penny that they're coming in counts as best it can. So something that I would like to kind of suggest as a way to improve that is to make sure that if you're feeling like you are really struggling, is potentially getting in contact with Citizens Advice for them to do a benefits check for you. You might be entitled to something that you wasn't aware of. So if you're working part-time, for example, you might be able to receive universal credit as a top-up, or you might be actually entitled to council tax support, which then in turn, the money that the government may be providing, that £150, would be more valuable because you're receiving council tax support. So actually, you might only have to pay £200 for council tax instead of £1,000. So that £150 means a lot more to that bill. There might be other schemes that you might be eligible for. So United Utilities, for example, there might be some water support that they might be able to provide. Obviously, I'm talking about United Utilities because that's the water supplier for the Northwest. There's also, like I said, sorry, I've put myself off track saying about the water. The benefits check can also obviously show if there's any other things that you might be eligible for, so increasing your income that way. In terms of, it's then saying, right, well, if I've only got X amount of money, how can I make sure I'm still able to put money onto my gas and electric meters? Is there anything else that I can try and maybe reduce, or look at your budget, do an income and expenditure? And again, if you're not sure of how to do that, our website, Citizens Advice, has got some great information on how to do that. But also, just do it in a notepad. Just write, this is what I get, this is how much money I make, this is how much what's coming out. And if it balances or if it doesn't balance, then maybe come to Citizens Advice and we can offer some budgeting advice in terms of that. Or if you've got any arrears and you're paying for stuff that actually doesn't feel like you're paying the right amount. So sometimes you might have, there might be a debt that you're paying a larger amount than actually feels comfortable at this moment in time. And you could speak to one of our advisors, again, a debt advisor, regarding that. And then in terms of kind of the other stuff, it's maybe thinking about, can I make sure that I'm putting £20 a week onto my gas and electric bill? So actually I'm having to think about maybe there's other ways of me saving. So what about using a community grocers? Is there any food clubs that I can start taking part in? Is there like things like that kind of feels a bit more comfortable in saying, actually, I've only got this amount of money and I want to make sure that I've got food on my table and I can put my heating on. So at this moment, energy can't really move we can't move that amount that we're paying. There isn't the savings. There's support, but not enough potentially support that I'm receiving. So how else can I budget that? So in terms of if you're unsure about anything, please do get in contact with Citizens Advice in terms of, we can see if there's any grants that may be available as well. So we have, if you're in debt at all, in terms of energy, there's definitely support from energy trust funds. So, for example, British Gas, there's other suppliers that have their own trust funds that can kind of help with one, budgeting. So am I actually paying enough? Am I paying the right amount for my energy usage? And kind of that accuracy is really important, because we want to make sure that you're paying the right amount, because one, you might be paying too much and that's really hard for you to afford, but you might not also be paying enough. And then actually that might, in a few months, few weeks, few years even, come back and then be harder to deal with. So that's why we want people to kind of speak to us as best as possible to get that support at the start of it feeling uncomfortable, instead of in a 6 months down the line where they are really struggling. Sorry.
And so you talked about community grocers there as like one way of sort of saving money, because obviously those sorts of setups where, you know, you pay a few pounds and get, you know, X, and that's, for example, £2.50 and you get £15 worth of food. Like, obviously it varies from grocer to grocer, but those kinds of setups. And I know that something that taps into some of that is the Healthy Start vouchers, which not a lot of people are aware of, but could offer some really vital support to some people who are sort of making those hard choices. So can you tell us a bit more about those?
Yeah, of course. So if you are from 10 weeks pregnant to having children at the age of 4, if you're on a low income or a mean tested benefit, you might be eligible for the Healthy Start vouchers. And then that basically means that you get an amount per week to be able to then contribute towards food. I think you can even buy some frozen veg and stuff like that towards, and milk for the baby, to kind of to support in the cost of them bits. But then also that'll help you maybe budget for the other food shop that you need to do. I think you can also get, for example, free school meals. That's quite hard to say. Free school meals as well. If you're on certain incomes, so checking out that if you are struggling. I'm just double checking in terms of what the Healthy Start vouchers do actually cover. So cow's milk, frozen, fresh and tinned vegetables and fruit, dried and tinned pulses, formula. And you can use, it's turning into a card now, so it's not even just a voucher that you're having to have. They're trying to digitalise it, so it makes it more accessible for a lot of people. So it will then just be a card. You're not having to go and get the vouchers every week. It's automatically topped up onto this card. So again, if you're not sure of how to access that, you can either give it a quick Google or, again, get in contact with us, and Rosie's put the banner up there and with our advice line number on, just like that.
Magic. That's how you can contact us. And as Jess said as well, that obviously our website has a lot of great sort of self-help tools, such as like advice pages, and also our like budgeting tools. So if you wanted to sort of help with some of that, working out an income and expenditure and a budget sheet, then you can potentially do that on your own, or as Jess has already said, you can absolutely ask our advisors for help. But also, if you can't make a phone call for whatever reason, but you are online, then our website has a lot of online tools for getting in touch with us. So, you know, we've got chatbots, we've got and digital tools and Facebook Messenger and like web chat and all of the online tools. We are here to help in a way that suits you. Video chat as well, if people want to see somebody face to face but don't necessarily have the means to get somewhere to speak to them. As Jess said, a lot of those sort of grants and support schemes that are out there, our advisors again can help you with identifying what those grants and support schemes might look like, and also how to apply, and potentially helping you with that application as well in some circumstances. So if you are really trying to figure out what might be the best way forward for you, our advisors are absolutely here to help and really keen to make sure that people get the support that they need. Jess, I can see we're running out of time, but is there anything else that you wanted to kind of cover before we leave today?
I think just in terms of some really simple energy efficiencies might be a nice way of ending. I know I've done these probably a few times on, but there's no harm. So thinking about what temperature you have it in your home, we do try and say anything between 18 and 21, or a little bit above 21 if you've got any health conditions that make you feel the cold that little bit more. Try and, if you have a thermostat that can be moved, think about where that's actually placed. I know a lot of boilers that are now being installed, they give you the option of having a movable thermostat, and that gives you the option of put it in a place that you're actually that you live in the most, or your living room, for example, and then having that temperature between the 18 and 21 when possible. If you feel like you've got any drafts, think about getting draft excluders, or having kind of the draft tape that you can get for around doors and windows. If you can, think about having, when you do your washing, try and just put it on 30 degrees. That won't use as much energy in terms of the temperature that it's being set to. And then just some simple stuff. And one thing that people have said that's really made an impact and it's a really simple one, and why don't we think about this all the time, is when you close your curtains at night, tuck in on behind your radiators if you've got them. Especially if they're a thermal insulated one, your windows are one of the biggest places that you lose heat. So if you've got windows, your curtains aren't just for display. Make sure you close them. They can look nice all throughout the day, but in the at night, please do close them, because that means that you're retaining that little bit of heat. So your heating's not having to work as hard.
Absolutely. And just sort of in terms of particularly things like the draft excluders, and if people are sort of going, oh God, I don't know how I would go about doing that, we keep an eye on our social media. In the next few days, what we will certainly be plugging quite a lot is we, as part of one of our European energy projects, we work on a project called Step Energy, and we've created a series of short videos that will kind of give you some really sort of visual tips on how you can do that energy saving, what that looks like in your house, so you're not just kind of hearing the words and not quite sure about how to apply it. So do keep an eye out for those and have a watch and see how you could potentially save yourself some money. But I think that's all we've got time for. But obviously, thank you everyone who's tuned in, and thank you if you are watching this on catch up, thank you for taking the time to watch. Thank you, Jess, for your time. I really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rosie, for hosting.
Bye.
Bye.